Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm Mia, and I'm super excited to have Deborah Hanekamp here. You might know her as Mama Medicine. She's amazing. I love her work. She's come to Mercado Sagrado to hold immersions before, and she is a guide, and she's helping people to empower themselves to learn how to heal themselves. And I love that because I feel like we're in this transition time where the frequency is rising and we're all being invited to just step more into our own power. So I love that that's what Deborah's doing. And I would love for you to just maybe share a little bit about you and your journey that led you to this work with the audience in case they're not familiar.
Well, I am American born. I'm living in Vermont currently at the moment. Very hardworking Irish American blue collar roots that got me started just working in general when I was 13, and then doing this work that I do now today since I was 17, and I'm 41 now. There really hasn't been any other career I've had or way in which I've gone. I just kind of knew what I needed to do in the world and just got going with it. So I facilitate a healing modality that I created throughout my many years of experience called medicine readings, which is a one-on-one hour-long session. It's a group ceremony, and it's a retreat that I do every year in Italy called Element Retreat. And the whole precipice basis of my work is to encourage folks to be their own healer. And I do this through guiding folks to just really connect to the nature that they are and to their original essence. And I can point things out in a really gentle way if that's needed. I can point things out in a stronger way if that's needed. I'm not afraid to do shadow stuff, but basically when you come to see me, we just talk about anything that's going on in life. I tell you about what I see in your aura that could be hidden talents and gifts, or just some things that could point you in the direction of giving you some guidance in your life. Seeing the aura is something I've always been able to do, which is part of the reason why I started this work so young. And after we speak, towards the end, I save time for a healing ceremony, which is different for everyone who comes, but it basically has to do with cleansing, blessing, and protecting the auric field. And then I send you on your way with some homework, maybe a prescription for a ritual bath, which I find is a very potent way to be your own healer, which is why I wrote the book, Ritual Baths, Be Your Own Healer. Or I send you on your way with some just applicable life homework to do.
I love that. That's amazing that you started so young. And I mean, I feel like I don't know what you're seeing, but I feel like we're shifting now so that there are more kids that are more aware of their abilities younger now. But when, I'm 45, but when we were young, it was quite unique to have those gifts. What was it like when you started to tune into that? And was it exciting or was it kind of scary? And did you have any like support?
Mm, I was under the impression that everybody could see auras, and everybody,
Mhm.
just like, we're like, this is the color red. And then somebody else comes along and they're like, no, that's orange. And you're like,
Wow.
but it's red to me, like that kind of thing. So I
Mhm.
vividly remember being 12 years old and talking to my friends about the colors around people and what I felt around those colors around people, and them laughing and looking at me like I was crazy for saying.
Wow.
And so then I tucked
Mhm.
it in, and I didn't tell anybody that I was actually seeing their auras. I actually didn't even tell folks who were coming to see me that I was seeing their auras until I was maybe 31. I would just,
Wow.
it would just be like energy reading, spiritual counsel, but nobody would know that I kept it very, very quiet. Um, I didn't have a whole lot of support growing up in terms of my spiritual gifts. I think that actually a lot of people who have like a sight, like a clairaudience or clairvoyance or clairsentience, um, or like a really strong sixth sense in some way to them, go through a very traumatic upbringing. And I think that I wasn't absolved of that.
Mhm.
Because you develop those gifts early and you hold them close early because they are what get you through your upbringing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have people close to me in my life that are very gifted that had early trauma, and it definitely seemed to me like it sort of opened some of the gifts that opened up, and it was helping them um to really just to get through that and to be able to read energies to make sure that they were safe and to guide
Yeah.
them out of the situations. Yeah, it's so interesting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting how that
Yeah.
happened. Yeah.
And that is kind of the template that, I mean, if we think about it, in shamanism or many medicine traditions, often it talks about kind of the healer healing, having to go through something like that to heal themselves and to learn and to get a handle on their gifts, I suppose, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. 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 Well, also that way, which by the way, it's not to say that I think that people who haven't gone through traumatic past can't have intuition and
Hmm.
see things like that, because I think it can go any direction. But I do think when you go through a lot and you overcome a lot and you don't let your past destroy you, um, what happens is that you can meet anybody who can be in it like a great amount of pain or suffering or confusion, and you you can really empathize with them. You can't maybe necessarily completely understand what they're going through because you haven't lived their experience, but you can empathize with what it means to feel really hurt or to feel really lost, or um yeah, to just feel like you have to completely start everything all over again.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Makes you really sensitized and be able to have that deep caring.
Yeah.
Um, and it's also like I feel like when we go into the depth of those emotions, because I've been through quite intense experiences in my life too that really led me through some really deep dark nights of the soul. And I feel like when you have that depth of emotion and go to those in a sense like lows, it also you really energetically then start to reach for something really high. It's kind of like how maybe, I don't know what you think, but maybe we manifest something that's actually very, very, very like high frequency or of the light, um through that just deep desire. And it's almost taking that into, even it makes me think of like this moment in time energetically where we've been going through such intensity and then so many people are growing because of that
Yeah.
desire.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that makes me think of like the last, I mean, obviously we've been going through such a transition point in humanity, and so many people, I keep seeing it as like a dark, like many of us, like you, have been through sort of a dark night of the soul where we've had to really go inward and go quiet and to get to know ourselves better and kind of get clear. And it's almost like these situations in the last couple of years have really like invited many people to do that. And I feel like those who I've just through who I know personally hadn't gone through that sort of dark night of the soul experience on their own have been invited to do it through the world experiences. And it's almost like a collective, I mean, I feel like that's like the collective awakening in a sense through that shadow path. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think a big part of it actually, is that we have to allow our light and shadow to be friends. Like
Mm,
instead of looking at it as like warfare, I know a lot of people look at everything that's going on as like energetic warfare or that this
mhm,
thing, which you could look at it that way. However, if we always keep one part of ourselves or one part of humanity in the light and the other in this demonized kind of cast aside, shunned or ignored place, then I don't think we ever really grow. I think that the way that we truly grow is taking our light, having it meet our shadow, have the two learn from each other and integrate, and then we can grow.
mhm,
So when it's an individual, it's like, you can go through, you could take two people, like you could take two siblings who have gone through very much a similar experience, right? One sibling decides, I'm never going to look at that again. I'm going to throw it out, toss it aside. They grew
mhm,
up, and let's say they keep it at bay and hidden through something like substance abuse.
mhm,
Other sibling goes, okay, wow, that was really intense. Let me sit with why I went through that. What did that time have to teach me? And they actually use that same lived experience to grow.
mhm,
And they do that growth through facing it. So I think that we're having this kind of very similar thing in humanity, where there's a large portion of people who are going through this shared collective
mhm,
shadow experience, and they're like, let me numb out, let me hide from it, let me, instead of take accountability, let me just cast blame on somebody else and get more into like the division of it all to try to pull myself further away from what I view as the
mhm,
darkness or the shadow. And
mhm,
other people are going, whoa, all hands on deck at this moment. What
mhm,
can I do to heal, to grow, to help contribute to the collective healing? Because the thing
mhm,
is, like, at some point, all of this healing work, this self-care work, it can feel very self-involved actually.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
but at some point you have to be like, well, why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? And it's actually through being our own healers, we create healing in the world. It encourages us in our own way, not in some way that somebody else tells you you have to do it, but in our own
Right.
way to participate in healing. And that looks different for everyone.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's so important because it's not just about staying in, this one container and doing that and being, self-involved. It's about expanding. And I feel like once, humans are being their most authentic self, that's so magnetic and that's so high frequency. And those frequencies affect the field. They affect, it's like when they've done those studies of groups meditating and how that changes things in an area. There's like less crime, things like that. I mean, it's actually been studied, but that frequency is, in a sense, just inspiring others to do the same. So it's like I saw it in a vision. It was like little lights turning on all over. Um, and then kind of inspiring. And I love that. That's so beautiful. And I think it's so important to just remember that self work is so important because we're at an energetic level, in a sense, on a higher level. We all are one energy, so we're just helping each other to uplift through that work. And usually when people go through a healing process, it's like you did, then you're inspired to share that with others, even through your own work, and help others to uplift. I know I am because when I got through a very dark night of the soul when I was younger, when I realized the heaviness in the world at a deep level, I went through that and I was like, what do I do with this now? Like, how am I supposed to process this? How am I supposed to help people one-on-one? It was very intense. And then for me, the answer ended up being just my path, doing Mercado Sagrado and talking to people like you and lifting up other expanders. And that felt like that transmutation of that energy into just like how I could share my gifts with the world and just do my part. And that looks so different for everybody because there's so many unique expressions of that, of course, right?
Yeah. 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 And the beauty is that collectively we're all healing, and that's like what we're all sharing, and that's that energy of oneness, right? But then we each get to do it in our own unique and individual way, which is why I think we have to be so careful when somebody is like, no, this is what you need to do to participate. This
Right.
is how you have to heal. It's like, well, that's probably true for you, but giving folks permission to find their own way means that, let's say, the same wound is healed from many different angles, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. Um, yeah, and I also know I've seen you kind of talking recently about the voice and discernment and guiding people in that process. And I think that's so important too at this time for those who kind of are on the journey that we've been talking about. Um, do you have any like advice on kind of stepping into empowerment? Because it can be so confusing at first when you're starting to really question, and then there's so many voices and so many opinions.
Yeah. I right now I'm doing something called the Elemental Healing Project. So I
Mhm.
started with the Voracious Voice, which connects to the element of wind. Next week, I'm doing the Sovereign Seer, which connects to the element of fire. But
Mhm.
I'm connecting to the elements because that's mostly what I use in my healing work, and connection to nature, basically, to
Right.
facilitate healing and balance. Um, but basically, I've noticed that in the past, I don't know, over 20 years of doing this healing work, I've noticed patterns and reoccurring themes coming up in my clients and the way that they connect to corresponding elements that I felt really called to share on a larger scale. So instead of just in my one-on-one work, I want to work with people in larger groups through this elemental healing project to share what I've learned and observed from these reoccurring themes to help people to have like breakthrough in their own ways and do with it what they will. So it's
Mhm.
like large collective medicine readings in a way.
Mhm.
One of the things that I've seen reoccurring, a big theme reoccurring in the voice, is somebody allowing something or someone else to speak through their voice,
Mhm.
and what that actually costs them, like the massive implications of what it means. Because along with that, and maybe you do it for a sense of belonging, maybe you do it because you don't want to be canceled, maybe you do it because it's just part of your conditioning, it's what you were told. But the implications of that often are a massive amount of insecurity, anxiety, self-doubt, a lack of trust in oneself, creating a lack of trust in the world.
Mhm.
And so for me right now, in the world, it just feels very important to share, like, all right, here's the reoccurring theme, and here's the implications of it. And I want you to have you speaking through your voice, because your unique message, what you have in your unique inner voice, is
Mhm.
part of what adds to the holistic healing that is needed at this time.
Mhm. Yes. It's like so major right now, right? I think that's so important. And I was so happy to see you talking about these themes because obviously like I would imagine everybody, all of you listening have gone through this on some level, either seeing it and you're comfortable kind of not engaging or being, having going through some really hard experiences. I know I have. It's been, initially the last few years there have been so much, I mean, our whole lives we've been subjected to a lot of divisive programming because
Yeah.
I call them the controllers that were, I don't think they're in control anymore. They had a great desire to, just essentially divide and conquer. I mean, it's not that complicated, and that's come through and social engineering and in so many ways, which led to things like, you mentioned cancel culture, and that it can be so traumatic to feel that, because of course we all want to be liked, we all want to belong, we want to feel part of a group. And so once I saw that kind of that energy leaking more into, I guess I would call it I guess the conscious community, or the community that I feel I'm part of, it was really intense and traumatic at first, and I had to kind of do my own growth with that and decide how I wanted to deal with that. And so I think it's so important to just for us to be talking about this right now and kind of just taking that into the light, because for a while it was kind of like just an overlay of that like fear frequency. And there's so many people now starting to talk about it. It's great. So I just appreciate you holding that container. Because like you said, it's so important to be able to speak with our own authority and trust our own guidance. Um, and I've also witnessed just, people that I know who, um, when that frequency started coming in of that kind of that fear kind of not stepping into their own authority, it's brought them, just more difficult experiences, and even to the point of creating dis-ease in the body. And that I think is just then a deeper invitation to step into our own power, right? So yeah, it's very deep work of this moment.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think we need to be really what you were talking about the powers that were. Um, One of the things that we've been taught, and maybe this goes back thousands of years,
mhm.
is self-hatred.
Mm,
And I think that, really the epitome of self-hatred, it's it's a lot to do with the kind of the very superficial forms of cancel culture that are out there, like, oh, I want to cancel this person because I'm trying to sell this course. Then,
mhm.
it's like cancel the competition level of the
Right.
cancel cancel culture, right? Um, I think like the energy in it, if I really look into it, is actually self-hatred. It's actually a projection of like what I don't like in myself, I see in you. And so if I eradicate you, then I actually am able to eradicate that part of myself or continue to wound that part of myself, you
Mhm.
know? So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's actually it's like it's actually so important to love ourselves and encourage others to love themselves too in the face of any adversity or division or any of that, because that's really at the core of what it is.
Yes. Yeah,
Mhm.
thank you for sharing that. I feel that it's that's so true. And to just remember that too, when even if somebody is being mean, essentially, it's like to remember that it's like we're all looking for love, and we've all grown up with these divisive programs, and it's that we're dispelling them all. And it's really big. And you're right, just the work to encourage others to love themselves, and for us too. And that can sound, that phrase is thrown around a lot, but it's for a big reason. And that's the thing I've realized too. I just want to add this with the programming that we've been exposed to. A part of what they did was to sort of create an energy where things were made fun of, or seen as trite, that were actually so profound and so important. So things like self-love, or just to make that into kind of a joke or something.
Yeah,
They've done that with so many things, right? When it's actually like, no, you guys, this is like the most important thing that we could be doing, because that's going to help shift this whole divisive program that we're in.
yeah, yeah. It's only a
Yeah.
cliche because it's true.
Yeah. So I would invite you for anything that you're like, I've noticed it myself. I'm like, oh, why am I kind of like looking down at that or laughing at it? Or why is that triggering? Anything like that, especially in the last few years, I've definitely like slowed down, and I start to question, and I'm like, what is that? Is that a program? Why am I reacting this way? It helps me a lot to start to see through those kind of yucky structures
Yeah.
that have been imposed.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great practice. It's a great, simple practice that anyone can do. Just
Mhm.
asking why actually in any circumstances is really good to do.
Yeah. Yeah, because like our emotions are that's like kind of it's telling us to look a little closer, whether it's an emotion of fear, anger, whatever it is, it's like a code to a deeper understanding, I think.
Yeah.
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 Um, I would love for you to share a little bit more about the aura if you feel comfortable. I mean, for so many here, it might be that you guys might already know about it, but I feel like there are also people that are just kind of stepping into this work now who are new to it. So even just to explain like what that is and how that affects us and how we can maybe work with it or understand about cleansing our energy field. Just anything related to that that you feel like would be maybe just helpful in this time, even considering everything we've just been talking about.
Um, okay, well, yeah, I do feel like a lot of you listeners here have a good feel on what the aura is. But it's just the energy body. So we have our physical body and we have our energy body too. So it's an extension of us. And I've noticed I mostly see auras. I know a lot of people can feel auras. A lot of people can even hear auras or smell auras. I feel them or and see them. And I've noticed that most folks have a base aura color, which is your aura color when you really feel like yourself.
Mm,
And or like you're just waking up in the morning, you that aura color. And then the aura also shifts and changes based on what you go through, what you think about in a day. So for example, if somebody is having like a really dark thought, I'll actually see the thought shoot in a lot of times from outside of them and land
wow.
their auric field. And then I'll say, what are you thinking about? What did you just think about? And something kind of like not them will come out. Um, or if people have a good idea actually really truly looks like a light bulb going on in
That's
somebody's
amazing.
aura. It's like this flash. It's like, wow, that was a good one.
That's so cool that you see that. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So there's colors, but there's also patterns, there's shapes, there's the way the energy moves. The aura really has a lot to say about people. And, so for me, when I see somebody's aura, I can really see a lot about them,
Mhm.
very intimate details of their lives and things like that. And that's why I had to just start using it as a gift to like help other people because the energy had to go somewhere because what would happen is I would start getting really frustrated with people where they're saying one thing and
Mhm.
acting one way, but it doesn't fit them somehow, you know?
Right. I mean, do you think like they're not being honest with themselves or they're just
Yeah.
not ready to
Mo-
admit?
Most of the time they're not being honest with themselves, most of the time.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. That's
Yeah.
so mm,
Yeah,
mhm.
the aura is really fascinating. Actually, like objects have aura. The Statue of Liberty has like a big yellow aura. Trees have auras. There's auras everywhere. Yeah, it's
I
very.
mean, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say and I don't know if this is correct or not or what you think, but I believe that everything is alive and like the tree, there are energetic beings, even the stones, the rocks, but that they're maybe slowed down. And I recently saw that Native American cultures, I believe they refer to the stones that they're using in ceremony as the mother. I was like, oh, that, or the grandmother. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Because I was thinking of them as just a very slowed down energy, almost like a lower, I don't know if density is the right. So, because we're in a quantum universe in a sense, essentially, not to jump into a whole other thing, but like there are other beings that we can't see because they're vibrating faster. And so that they're just vibrating lower. I don't know. If that makes sense, but but that they're all alive in a sense and have a field.
Yeah, definitely. I also think sometimes it depends on the stone and it depends on the person.
Well, that's yeah.
In terms of frequency. Um, because like there's some mountains I've seen that just like to be in that aura it feels like you're at the source of life itself. Or I was just in Iceland um last week, and I was under the Aurora Borealis, which is like a lifelong aura nerd dream.
Um,
And the Aurora, I I was singing to the Aurora, like, thank you for showing up. So I was singing to the Aurora, and as I was singing, the Aurora was changing in the rhythm that I was singing.
wow.
And then the Aurora stretched in an archway, like a blue-green rainbow over this white snowy mountain. And you see all the stars. When you see the aurora, you see all the stars too. So I saw, and from the archway went from Lyra to Andromeda, and it was this big green archway over this mountain. And I thought, okay, that's the most profound aura I've ever seen
Wow.
by far.
That
But it's as if the aurora had its very own frequency and energy and spirit.
that's so interesting. I totally believe that. I mean, I feel like I don't even know what the narrative is about what auroras are, but I feel like they're magnetic it's like a frequency.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so that totally makes sense to me. And I also love that you talk about it kind of responding to you because I really believe that, and I don't know what you do, but I'm sure you do too, that like we actually have more influence than we have been told, and that we can, you know, energetically engage or talk to the aurora or the trees or the weather. And that I mean, I'm curious. I want to hear what you think about this too, how we're moving into the future, because I feel like this frequency shift we're going to step more into those sort of, I don't want to call them powers because I think it's natural for us. I call it spirit technology. That I feel like it's our natural gifts that we've been kind of led astray from with being steeped in civilization, but that we will be more, I guess, remembering how to engage in that way. I don't know what you think about that.
Oh, I think that was a big thing that happened in 2012, actually.
Mm,
It started happening in 2012. Actually, before 2012, leading up to 2012, mostly the folks who would come to see me, they'd be massage therapists or yoga teachers or meditators, or they'd be sort of
mhm.
already in a far out woo world. And then
Uh-huh.
after 2012, it was like lawyers and doctors and finance people and
Wow.
realtors, and it was like people who
Wow.
work in these more analytical ways, but they couldn't deny the sense of opening that was happening. And the next thing you see is folks starting to actually recognize all the synchronicities. So like 2013,
Mm,
2014, people are like, I keep seeing 1111 everywhere. I keep on seeing 222. Like all the numbers are lining up. And it's like, yep, that's the next step, right? First you have this awakening, like there's more than just this, you know, all that is what I can touch and see is real. And then the next thing that happens is you start becoming aware of synchronicities. So the synchronicities have actually always been there. Thing is, the difference
Mm.
is now you're catching them.
Mm.
And then from there, you start to realize like your interaction in it all. So then around like probably like 2014, 2015, people were like, wait, am I manifesting this? And manifestation became
Mhm.
huge. And,
Mhm.
and always along the way, there's people that are like, oh, this is what these numbers lining up means. This is what this manifestation is. Because people still have that analytical part of their brain where they can't just accept like the mystery and the magic of it all. They need to have like the definition of it, which is okay, right? That's like one part of what we're moving away from. Um, but now we're in this kind of you fast forward a lot of these things. I mean, there's so many different layers I could go through with you, but you fast forward and now we're in this kind of like demanifestation phase. Like, what have we called in too much? Like, what can we break apart? What can we let go? What maybe being spiritual is not about what I put on, what I label myself as. Maybe it's about what I take off and then just allow that room for my spirituality to exist as it always has been. I've just been covering it up with all these definitions and labels
Right.
like that.
I love that because that's what I'm really feeling too of the energetic of like this kind of moment-ish is moving away from yeah, kind of the labels. And I think of it as like the ritual
Mhm.
because we have grown up steeped in so many rituals and a lot of them not all some beautiful, some not, different religious overlays, all those kinds of things. But it's like, ritual has been so important and even in kind of in the spiritual community. But in a sense, if we're growing into the realization that our beliefs are creating our own reality, and then collectively, it's like, well, maybe it's just our beliefs that decided that was important then. And if we're growing, maybe we're even kind of moving out of the need for that ritual and it can be more simple than that essentially. So that's kind of where I'm at and where I'm thinking of like, okay, well, I can just kind of create my own practice around anything. And it's really just me doing it anyway. So, yeah, in a sense, like what you're saying, kind of like just letting it be lighter and more in the moment and more flexible and changing even. Okay, well, this is how I was doing it yesterday, but I'm going to do it this way, whether it's kind of doing an energetic clearing for myself or for the land or something else or talking to the waters or it just anything. It's feeling much more, I guess, playful.
Yeah,
And free.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. Less defined.
Yeah, less
Yeah,
defined. And it's kind of that like, yeah, and it totally goes along to me with this energy of like sovereignty, which of course that word has been coming up so much. And I think it's like what we talked about earlier. It's like stepping into our own power and stopping to, listening to all the voices and going like, well, what do I actually feel? What is my soul telling me? What is my intuition telling me? And I'm just going to go with that instead of relying on, well, this is how it's always been done, or this is how I'm told to do it. And I think it's really fun. It's kind of like feels like it's also just inviting more of that. Well, I guess you could call it the authentic self, which kind of takes it back to like what you even opened with talking about in your work. And it's, or people call it maybe sometimes um, the inner child. But to me, that's kind of the same thing. I don't know. I don't know if it is to you or if it's different. It's kind of like that authentic part of us that often we cover up, especially when you're young, because we're told so many things are wrong about it. Too loud or too talkative or, daydreaming too much or whatever it is. So yeah, to me, it feels like that process of letting go of those things is just stepping more into that um, to nature, I guess. Yeah.
yeah. It reminds me of what you said in the beginning, how the kids now are just so much more in tune with that. Like my daughter, she's 11, and her friends, the conversations that they have are so awesome. They're like, what did you dream about? And like, Um, they're very supportive of each other. They're very encouraging. They cheer each other on with everything, and they're talking about dreams, and they're talking about visions, and they're
Wow.
making whole entire stories together that they're pushing to be presented at their school. And it's really about like expression, and there's no fear in being like sort of like the far out fairy kid, because
Mhm.
everybody gets that, you know?
Wow, that's amazing. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. And she, her group of friends is not just solely here where we live. We only moved here a couple of years ago from New York City, but because of the
Mhm.
nature of my work, and just I've been very adamant about her coming everywhere with me when I travel. So I
Mhm.
really only traveled for work when I can bring her most of the time. And so the
Mhm.
kid has friends that she's in contact with from all over the world. Like there's somebody in every continent who she's connected with and friends with, except for Antarctica, which we haven't been to yet. But she's in this like group chat with them, and they're all from each different corner. They're all in this energy of just that inner child.
Mhm.
You say inner child, I would say original essence. It's
Mhm. Mhm.
intact. It's
Yeah.
intact. It's amazing.
I love that. That's so beautiful. And it's so good to, I think, talk about that and for like, the audience, for everybody to hear that, because if you're not around children, there's such with what's been happening in the world, it's easy, I think, to maybe feel discouraged and feel like, oh, everybody's online now. The kids are just playing video games and they're tuned out and this and that. And that's actually not what I've been seeing in my reality either. The kids
Yeah.
I've been around are inspired in that same way and very free. I mean, just break out into song. I mean, just it seems just much more comfortable being themselves and not caring what people think about them. Like you said, your original essence. And that's so amazing.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
important. Oh my gosh. Yeah. On that note, like, do you feel like that's just a part of where we're going? Is there anything that you see coming in the near future or the far future that you would want to share about?
Um, I do feel like we have some more challenges ahead as
Mhm.
a human collective this year. Like I had a strong feeling in 2020, like it's gonna be at least 4 years of this.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, I, but I do think what's going to happen is we're going to be pushed into, almost forced into being able to find the beauty in life, and the beauty, like our own creativity and our own beauty and the beauty that surrounds us. We're almost going to be forced into that because
Mhm.
we'll need it so much. Um, and I do think that quest is actually what is going to help us to heal a lot. And
Mhm.
then it's going to be, very undefined and very wild, hopefully. But I I I'm an eternal optimist. Like I am the fool in the tarot deck for sure. I'm like
Mhm.
again and again, humanity, you break my heart, and I still love you, and I still love you. And I think that actually, like, it's probably something that I wouldn't ever want to change about myself, because I believe in people. I think humans are amazing, and I think we'll be all right.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, I do too. And I love that is the full. My birthday is the tower card.
Uh-huh.
And so I relate a lot to that. But I feel like it's also pertinent because it's like you have the fool, which is so beautiful, and just going off into that new journey. And then the tower that like oh, everything is crumbling again, but it's also a burst of like a new idea or a whole new thing. So it's like I could kind of almost see it in either way. It's like, yes, everything, and I talk about this a lot. So for anybody who's been here, it's like I see all these systems crumbling and I'm like, oh, you guys, though, there's so many new things coming and there's so many structures behind them actually that we don't know about. And some of this is on my own intuition and also some on intel that I know from people working behind the scenes on stuff that hasn't been revealed yet. So I knew there's like a new beautiful financial system coming that's totally different. There's our higher technologies that have been suppressed that are coming to light. And we see this stuff sort of leaked even in the media now, but it's not fully out there yet. So yeah, I'm super positive too, actually. I feel like it's that tower, it's that crumbling to create the new. And then for us that are already excited about doing that, like I think like we're already in it. And then for those that it's going to be maybe a shock to, I feel like it's going to be just an invitation to just again get more clear and up level and get really in tune with what's important and what brings you joy, and pull more practices in that are like bringing out that essential true self. Because when I had a vision about this 10 years ago, it was like, what's most important? It was like really being in joy and holding that frequency and just trusting because it's already like time doesn't really exist. So in that sense, like we've already gotten to the other side of it. We're creating a beautiful future, but the journey is the journey. We're on the journey, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a really exciting time. That is there anything that you want to share about like stuff that you have coming up before we tune out? I'll put all of your links below for everybody so they know where to find you, but I definitely share if there's projects or immersions you have that people can tune into.
Um, okay, well, there's a couple things. One is the Elemental Healing Project, which I mentioned before, which is working with the elements of nature to be your own healer. And it's going to span in 3-day series per each element over the course of roughly 6 months. Just started last week. It'll be all available for you. You can catch it on demand. You can catch it live till June. So I guess over the course of 4 months, it's available. And that's just a way to work with me now, because right now my books are closed to new one-on-one medicine reading clients. As I mentioned before, I've been doing this for a long time. I have folks who have been coming to me for years and years, and I've been increasingly more busy, and I want to make sure that the people who have been coming to see me for a long time can continue to come to see me. So I've had to close my books just for the time being to new one-on-one clients, but I can work with folks in this bigger way through the Elemental Healing Project. The Elemental Healing Project is online, but it also can prepare you for my element retreat that I do every year for the past 7 years in Italy, in Northern Italy. It is also like if you have FOMO about the element retreat, you could do the Elemental Healing Project. But the element retreat is a women's retreat that I do every year in the north of Italy. Women can come and they can bring their kids too, and the kids have their own
Oh,
retreat. But
that's
each
so cool.
yeah, the kids are they're the magic of the retreat. But each day we work with a different element, and it's a very powerful, transformative experience. And that's pretty much it. I do have a apprenticeship I actually just started doing that's very close to my heart, and I'm very careful about who can come in and who can do it. I have like a whole lengthy application process, and that I'll be starting again in August as well. But I just take a few apprentices at a time.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Amazing. Oh,
yeah.
well, thank you so much for sharing. And this was really fun. And we'll have to do it again. I loved having you in conversation. Thanks for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And thanks you guys for joining, and I hope you have a beautiful day.
Bye.
Bye.